So I just started off just selling drugs. Didn't really care about any consequences, so I said yes to everything.
You got into debt collecting?
Yeah.
You're a virtual standover man.
It's a lot different the way Combank operates. At first it was about money, but then it became, in the end, I started doing jobs that had nothing to do with money, and people were just paying me to enforce.
Yeah.
People just, some guy would just give me $2,500 and go, can you go and flog this cunt for me?
Yeah.
I took a lot of pride in being openly gay sort of gangster. You see a lot of terror in people's eyes when you're like the hardest guy in the room or one of the most reckless guys in the room, and you're sitting there and you're being a hard cunt, and then you also say I'm gay.
You drop that.
But I think there's this element of this guy's like, damn, this guy might not just flog me. It could be worse.
The I Catch Killers podcast was a fresh start for me, as I left policing behind and started a new life. Over the years, we've laughed together, cried, and shared some powerful moments. Welcome to I Catch Killers. Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Elliott McLaren, a half-caste, left-handed gay Scottish Maori who is also a drug addict, drug dealer, standover man, and now pursues his passion as a stand-up comedian. Elliott, you're a complex character.
Tell me about it. I'm still trying to figure myself out.
I'm trying to keep this podcast on track, but we just go off on little deviations all the time. But you got so many things to talk about. But, here on I Catch Killers, we love complex characters, so I'm enjoying myself. So welcome back to part 2.
Thank you, yeah.
Now, we managed, through great trial and tribulation, get you through to your sort of early 20s.
Yeah.
Okay. Your life was sort of all over the place at this stage, holding on to some anger stemming from a child being a victim of child sexual abuse, suppressing your sexuality because you didn't want to come out as a gay man in an environment that the community had demonstrated was not acceptable. At what age did you come out? What age did you put your hand up and go, hey, this is me?
I was still 20. I was just before I turned 21. I remember it was the week of Christmas, end of the year. I was still 20 at the time. And I got run over by a car. I'd just been run over by this car.
I forgot to include that in my notes. Yeah,
I'd just been run over. And I'm really accident prone. I've been in the hospital heaps of times. But this one was funny because it was my last cigarette. I remember sitting there with my cousin. I had to drive my cousin to your guys' version of the Big W, our version of the Big W.
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night in a Westfield car park. He's getting his little brother's presents for Christmas, 22nd of December. And I'm sitting there and I'm smoking my last cigarette and I'm waiting for my dole to come through at midnight so I can go and get some smokes. And I thought, this is 11 o'clock. I'll smoke my last ciggy. I can hold out until then.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I dropped my cigarette just after I lit it. I dropped it out of the driver's side window and it rolled onto my car. And I'm in a car park with 300 cars. Car space is empty.
Yeah.
It's middle of the night. And so I'm like, okay, this is fine. I'll just get my ciggy. And I wriggle under the car to get it. And I remember I just managed to pinch it in my fingers and I was so happy. I was like, yeah, I've got my cigarette. And I just saw headlights and my guts just crumbled. I knew for some reason, I don't know why, but I knew that car was going to park on me. And they swung into the car park next to me and just parked on top of they dragged both my legs underneath the car and then parked on top of both my ankles. And the poor girl, P-plater, who was driving it, I think she was on her hours actually.
I don't know why I'm laughing, but I am laughing.
It was so funny. And I'm under the car, like sort of skewing under the car. And I remember yelling, I was like, fuck, you're on top of me. And the poor girl panicked.
She would have died of fright.
She did, mate. But the problem was that she died of fright and she dropped the clutch to sort of get off me as quickly as she can. She didn't do a smooth gear change. And so when she dropped the clutch, it just skidded the front tyres up that were parked on top of my legs. And it took the top of the ball joint out of my ankle, took the top of the bone off. As the tyre skidded, it ripped the bone out, ripped all the flesh off. And then she went over my legs. And I got up and I stood up and I leaned on the passenger window where her boyfriend was in the passenger. And I looked at her, I was like, fuck, that hurt. And they're like, oh my God. And the boyfriend's like, you okay, mate? Are you okay? He's 2 parkyard kids. You okay, mate? And I was like, fuck. And I think I was wearing gang colours, covered in gang colours. I had a blue bandana, I had blue shorts on, a blue singlet. These poor kids are like, they're dying because they're like, not only did I run someone over, I've run a fucking gang member over.
I'm just trying to picture it. So they come in, shopping centre, car park. They're probably coming in there to do their shopping or whatever. And then a bump as they go over you, and they look down, and there you are with a smoke in your hand.
And I got up, still holding my smoke. I got up holding my smoke. I was like, that fucking hurt, and just had a drag. And then looked at them, and then I was like, I'm going to go home to bed. I think I was going to get some more ice. And I was like, I'm going to go home to bed. And but I was like, I'm going to score. My fucking leg's killing me. I got to get some drugs. And my cousin's flatmate was in the car at the time. Cousin's still in the shop, and my cousin's flatmate's in the car, and he goes, "No, mate, we got to take you to." He panicked. He's like, "We got to take you to hospital. This is fucking really bad." Da da da. And I'm like, "No, it's all good. Just give me some drugs and I'll be fine." And he jumps in. He puts me in the passenger seat, jumps in the driver's. It's like it was Tokyo Drift. This guy was
racing you to the hospital.
Me to the hospital. Like, you're going to kill us on the way to the hospital, you idiot. And we got to the hospital, and they wheeled me in a wheelchair. You know, and I don't know if it was because I had all these gang colours on or what, but they did not want to serve me. The hospital staff took forever to get to me. I sat there for an hour, leg bleeding.
Maybe because you're off your face as
well.
Off
my face, you know. I'm off my face. I'm high out of my mind, and you know, I looked really unsavoury. I had no shoes on.
Yeah,
I wasn't even wearing shoes when I got to the Big W. I had no shoes on.
Yeah,
and they wheeled me in. And they pulled this like Oral-B toothbrush out of the packet, and the guy just scrubbed the bone clean. That was the only thing they really did for me. They scrubbed all the bones clean with a toothbrush, hosed it all off, got all the tire rubber and the stones and bits of glass out of my ankle, and then he bandaged it up, and he just said, "Mate, if you get it infected, I'm gonna have to take your leg off at the knee." Yeah. I said, "Don't you do feet?" And he goes, "Nah, we just do above and below the knee." I said, "Well, that's a pretty small menu, mate. It's a..."
Well, life's going good for you, Elliot.
Yeah, life was going good.
Everything's going well.
It was great. I was living at this mob house, I think, mongrel mob house. There was all these this fella I worked with. His brother was the sergeant of arms of the mongrel mob. Some people are familiar with them over here, not everybody, but they're really big,
very powerful.
Very powerful, yeah. Very heavy gang, like very heavy. They do a lot of crimes. I think the initiation back in the day was a rape or a murder to get in.
Yeah.
So a lot of heavy characters, especially the OGs, the old boys are real heavy characters. And I was living at this house, and I started talking to this guy. I met him actually while I was still bandaged. It was only about a week later. I went round to this guy's house to hook up with him.
Yeah.
Māori fella from South Auckland, and absolutely loved him. Had the best time ever. It was such a great feeling, and it was nice because we were at his house. It was out of the city. I didn't feel like I had any eyes on me or anything like that. Because prior to then, I was hooking up with guys, but on the secret.
So this was, you hadn't come out with your gang mates or
nobody knew. Yeah. I'm still deep in the closet.
But you would find partners and find people to hook up with.
Yeah.
And you do that, but do it on the quiet.
On the quiet, and there was times I'd go there. Sometimes I'd go to the sauna. The sauna was good too because you could sell drugs at the sauna. So you could go there.
One-stop shop.
Yeah, one-stop shop. It was business and pleasure all in the same building, and I would go there, and you could do that, and I would hook up with guys. But I remember it was in an area of the city where there was a lot of people who wore the same colours that I did, and I was always terrified because you'd come out of the building at night and you'd always poke your head out on the street and you'd look both ways to make sure there was nobody who you might know or nobody who might know somebody you know coming out of that building. So I was terrified. And when I was hanging out with this guy, it was a really nice, relaxed sort of setup. We hung out. I stayed the night. We kept messaging, and I'd just been run over. Life was looking pretty bad. I didn't really have a lot of options. I had no money. I think I was about to be homeless again. And we chatted for a few months, and then it wasn't long after that, I ended up staying at his house like every single night.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, and then his mum was like, "Do you just want to live here?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, I'd love to," because she knew the situation I was in.
Yep.
She's like, "We'll take you in, it's all good, you can live here." So I was stoked. I was really happy. I started living with him. It wasn't long after that, it was my 21st was coming up.
Yeah.
And I remember it was something kind of stoic about it, but like it was sort of old school but new school combined, where I was like, yeah, I'm gay, which I was really ashamed of, and I was still deep in the closet about it, but at the same time, this was my partner, and I didn't want to have my 21st
without celebrating your relationship
with my partner, and that would just be such a, I just thought in my head that was just such a weak thing to do, to keep it a secret, and so I told my cousin, I told a few people I knew. I told my parents. I tried to come out of the closet to my mum. She didn't believe me. So that was the worst. That was the worst coming out I ever had. Was trying to tell someone you're gay and they don't believe you, and you're like blue in the face, like, no, I'm gay, and my mum's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I am, and she's like, I don't believe you. And then and then after all, she was like, this isn't even a funny joke. Why are you trying to? I was always a funny character, always trying to do funny shit, and she's like, this isn't even funny. I don't know why you're trying to flog this horse. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, no, I'm being serious. My mum gay. And she just looked at me and she goes, oh, knock me down to a feather duster. I always thought it'd be your brother.
Just can't accept it. I
couldn't believe it. Yeah,
I've seen that, and no names, no pack drills to identify the people, but I've seen that with people that just like when someone's come out and people just can't accept it, and they don't. It's not. You can't even take offence because it's not done maliciously. It's just something that they haven't even comprehended.
Nah, they'd never crossed their mind once. So like, of all the kids my mum had, I was the worst one. I was the most violent. I was always played rugby. I was always never shy of a fight. I worked in the meat industry for ages, which is quite a masculine sort of environment. And I am quite a masculine sort of guy, but it was I also just am attracted to men. So it was such a funny coming out. And I remember my 21st turned into all of but 4 people. It was my big sister, my older sister, my 2 parents, and my partner at the time, and that was my whole 21st year.
Right. Okay.
I went from being a party to 4 people.
Because you'd come out.
Yeah.
To confronting.
Yeah. I think just for a lot of people.
Oh, mate, that's sad.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was ended up just actually, to be honest, it was a really nice 21st. I ended up just having dinner with my folks and my big sister, and it was really sad at the time. Yeah. It was really sad, and I had people message me and be like, don't talk to me, and I don't want to know you. And I had cousins message me and say, don't come to family Christmas.
See, I know feelings like that can run strong with certain people, but I didn't think it would get to that stage. Not this day and age. But you had people just overtly coming, stay away from me. Yeah,
stay away from me. I had cousins say, don't come to family Christmas. I'm from a Māori family, an Indigenous family. We have big Christmases, like 40 people plus. And they'd be like, don't come to family Christmas. I don't want to eat my lunch next door, faggot.
I didn't think it would be that strong, but that might be just me being naive. Like it's
it could be all the years in Sydney. Now, when I talk to people over here in Sydney and stuff like that, you guys have had a gay scene. You've had Mardi Gras since the 80s.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Like I was in Christchurch. When I lived in Christchurch, they didn't have a Pride March. The only Pride March they had was a white Pride March.
Okay.
They had a white pride march, but not a gay pride march.
There's an irony there, isn't it?
Yeah. So that just speaks volumes on the sort of city I was living in at the time.
Okay, well, you've clarified. That makes sense because I'm thinking, no, they couldn't have that reaction.
If you want to know what New Zealand's like, it's an amazing country. I love my country. I love my people. I love it. But if you want to know what rural New Zealand's like, it's like just think about Australia in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just still the same culture.
That makes sense. How did it make you feel, the fact that you came out? Was that a big weight off your shoulder?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was so great.
Yeah.
It was the initially it was the first key to my release. I was stoked. I almost immediately, within the next couple of months, I stopped doing drugs.
Okay.
I stopped doing drugs. I stopped hanging out with those, and I wanted to stop, especially after getting run over and all the rest of everything else that happened. I've been homeless and everything.
Smoking kills.
Yeah. That's what my mum fucking said. Yeah. It's exactly what she said. Yeah.
It seems to me what you're saying here is that this whole burden that you've been carrying about hiding your sexuality has been lifted.
Yeah.
Life's looking a little bit brighter. It's not all doom and gloom anymore. You're not living the lie. What are these drugs for? I don't need them.
I don't need them, yeah. I like my reality now.
Yeah.
It's great, and it's an exciting thing. Now I've got this thing I can build, which is my life. I've got this life I get to build. I get to actually be in the same value line as what I, what I mean? I can live that same life. I don't have to worry about. And what's the worst thing that people are going to say? All the things that ever held me back was in the back of my mind. I could always hear people saying, fuck, you gay or something.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the funny thing about that is it's like, yeah, I am. It's not even...
That takes the sting out of it,
takes the sting out of it. It's like, well, funny you should say that. Like, what are you, gay or something? It's like, well, funny you should say that I am gay. So yeah, it was this huge weight, and it was this exciting opportunity for me to be like, right, what do I want to do? What's the life I want to live? I used to have all these fantasies as a young boy going, well, young boy, but the young man going, I'm going to run away to San Francisco, or I'm going to go somewhere,
and be true to myself and live my life.
Live my life, and escape this situation I'm in. And then now I'm like, I can actually do that. I can actually do what I want to do. I can start building steps towards the life that I want to live and start creating my life and not be afraid. I wasn't afraid anymore. Like the scary part had been done.
That's an interesting way to put it, that you're not afraid anymore. It's horrible going through life if you're afraid.
Yeah, all
just
the time.
Like that term, like I was afraid.
Yeah.
Just being yourself in life.
Every day, just afraid of my own existence. Yeah, afraid of the reality of my own existence. And so, after coming out, it was pretty quickly, I just stopped doing drugs. My partner didn't do drugs, and he didn't want any drugs. I still drank. But that was okay, and I just worked really hard. I got an apprenticeship at a really good butcher shop.
Yep.
And I was one of the best in the country, and I really wanted to actually get qualified. I never got qualified. Have a trade. So I knuckled down, and for the next 3 years, I just worked really hard. I did big days, I'd do 75, 100-hour weeks in the shop, and got my apprenticeship done. I did the butchery competitions in New Zealand. I got third equal in New Zealand as a butcher, and really loved it. I really loved it. It became my whole world.
So life was going well.
Really good. But, from going from 20 years old and being run over by a car and being gang affiliated and a drug addict to being 23 and being out of the closet gay man, fully qualified butcher, and I'd saved enough money to get pre-approved for a home loan.
Yeah, well, full credit to you.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd like to end the podcast here.
I'd love that.
If we can, and you lived happily ever after, and that's a beautiful story, and what a great way to finish High Catch Killers. Yeah. But sadly, we don't finish that way.
Sadly, that's not how
that's
not how
what's
my
that
life
song?
goes.
Love Hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, tell us. Okay, so the perfect life.
It was that white picket fence, and I really thought that at the time. I was like, I've done it. I've built that white picket fence. I've gone from, 16 having nowhere to live and being terrified.
Yep.
And then all the rest of it, and then getting to 23, and I remember getting pre-approved for a home loan and just going like, wow, I'm going to buy a house. This house is going to set me up. By the time I'm 30, I might have a couple more under my belt and maybe a butcher shop, and who knows.
So life is looking good.
Really good. Being 23 and looking to buy your first home is pretty good, no matter where you live. Yeah. My partner at the time, he was my fiance at the time, actually. At that point, I'd proposed. I remember messaging his old man, this big Māori fella in South Auckland, going, hey, bro, I'd love to marry your son. Is that all good of you? And he gave me his blessing. And so I proposed, and I remember one of my cars had been repossessed. I had an eviction notice on my house. My phone was cut off, my internet was cut off, and my power was cut off. And I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And he goes, I'm really sorry, but I lost my job a few months ago, and I didn't want to tell you, and you're working so hard, and we've got nothing. And I was like, what do you mean we've got nothing? I've got $15,000 in a bank account. Yeah. And he's like, we got nothing. And I was like, what? And then I panicked, and I went and got a second job. This is how much I was in love with this guy. I went and got a second job. Yeah. To try and work my way out of the debt. I was so attached to this dream of having this life that I'd built. And I didn't want it to be a failure, because I think in the back of my head, I was just picturing all those guys I used to kick it with, who I, had to come out of the closet to and stuff like that. Them just seeing my failure, and I was like, no, I don't want them to know that I've failed. I want my life to be a success.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
And getting more and more depressed and mentally ill because of the stress and anxiety and stuff like that. And so I moved all this stuff out, moved all of my stuff into my dad's garage. I didn't want to go in my mum and dad's garage. I didn't want to go and stay with my mum and dad, because my dad's really homophobic. Yeah. At the time, he didn't want me to live in the house. He had a sleep out. A little cottage on the little.
Why?
One.
Because he thought he'd catch it?
So I think so, yeah. I think he thought he already had it, and he didn't want me to inflame it. Maybe it's a bit like malaria. I don't know why my dad was so homophobic. I do a joke about it, but like I honestly don't know why he was so homophobic. I think I just swallowed my pride, and I was living in this car. So this $5,000 drug dealer Beamer that I owned when we first got together. And I'm living in this car. I had to move the car every night, and it was -12 at night. It was fucking freezing in Christchurch. I remember I used to lie in my car. I'd try to sleep at the park, in my car, and I used to have bruised ribs because I'd be convulsing in the cold. It was -12, and I'm dying. I just remember convulsing in the cold, just shivering and just feeling sick. It was probably the most. I'd never experienced sorrow like that before in my life.
It was a case you had no one in your life you could reach out to, or you were too ashamed to reach out?
I think too ashamed. I definitely had people I could talk to. My mum was trying to help as best she could, but I was so emotionally unstable, and it was quite surreal. I'd not only lost my best friend and my partner, who I loved with all my heart. I loved this man so much I would have got a second job for him.
Yeah.
But I'd lost everything. I was financially, emotionally, and spiritually destitute.
Okay, it makes sense. So you've lost the love of your life. Then the betrayal adds to it.
Yep.
You've lost the finances and your pretty little life with the white picket fence that you had set up and had dreamed about and finally was in reach.
Yeah.
Has just been blown away.
Blown away, yeah. It's gone. The whole thing was a lie, and I was getting phone calls 10 times a day from different debt collectors. Hey, you owe me money for this. Hey, you owe me money for this. Hey, you owe me money. The bill was about $32,000 I ended up owing.
Yeah.
Which is it's a huge
lot of money.
It's a lot of money for a 23-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. It's really scary, especially when you're only making $17 an hour. And that was my wage. So 32 grand was heaps. And I just thought, I'm gone. All my hard work was over. I was so angry. And it wasn't long after that I bumped into one of my old cronies who used to kick it with. Actually, the pills I was talking about before, that's...
Listener warning, this is where it goes sad again.
Sad again, yeah. So, I bumped into him, and it was this weird thing. I'd just been fired from my job. I ended up bashing one of the apprentices. I think I was just gotten qualified, and he was a first-year apprentice. Was real lippy little shit, and he mouthed off to me. And I just spit it. I just pinned him up against the wall. Well, it's funny, because all you can actually see on the cameras, he's trying to leave the building to get away from me, and you can just see on the security cameras is just my arm reach out. It was like a cartoon. Let my arm reach out of the door, and I just grabbed him and just lifted him off his feet. It's a lot littler than me. I lifted him off. I was big too, about 120 kilos. Lifted him off his feet, pulled him back into the room, and gave him a bit of a hiding, and I got fired for it. I resigned. Had no job. I was in all this debt.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I needed, was to lose my job. That was all I had going for me. And I bumped into this fella. I got in payout from my work. They'd paid me out to leave. And I remember seeing this fella, and I was like, fuck. I told him everything had happened, and he goes, fuck, I just split up with my missus too.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. And we were kicking it, and he goes, hey, bro, if you want, I can get these ounces of MDMA for X amount of money. And then I did the maths, and I was like, fuck, if I sell that in one weekend, I'm making $5,000. And that was it. I was like, fucking boom.
And it's interesting, and I appreciate your openness and honesty. The fact that your life was going in the right direction, and it's set back, and then all that pain comes back on you, and you revert back to. To me, it's not the person you want to be. It's not the person you really are, but you just find your way in that low place again, and you're dealing drugs.
Yeah, dealing drugs. Yeah, and taking them in high quantity too. And it's funny, I hadn't done drugs in 3 years. And I hadn't done anything like that in 3 years. Yeah, I wasn't a perfect person. I'd been in a few dust-ups then too, especially when I come out of the closet at work. I belted a couple of guys because they tried to fight me for it, and I was never really shy of that, but I was not a criminal.
Yeah.
I wasn't hanging out with criminals. I didn't hang out with criminals. I didn't do criminal stuff.
And you felt better about yourself when you...
Heaps better, yeah, heaps better, yeah. And I felt a lot more stable, and everything was good. I was really quite proud of the person I was becoming. Still had lots of work to do, but it's a process, and it wasn't long after that I was back to using drugs.
Yep.
Back to dealing drugs, but this time around I was more determined than ever to be a high profile guy.
Yeah.
Like before then, I was never high profile. I was just I was a nobody. I was a street ruffian, I was not doing anything special, dime a dozen sort of crook. And then, but this time around, I was like, I want to be.
You wanted to make a statement.
Yeah, I want to make a statement. I want to be somebody. I want to take my power back.
You said when we were chatting the other day that you were just angry, just angry and stuff this. I'm going to take on the world.
Yeah.
You do this to me. I've had so many kicks in the gut, so I'm angry now. It's payback time.
Yeah, especially because I tried my best. I tried so hard, and I really did. I tried so hard. I tried my best, and then it didn't work out. And all that said to me was that it was just a sign from the universe that this is not what you're supposed to be doing, and I just thought, you know what, fuck it, I've lost it all. I tried my best, and it didn't pan out. So at least I can say I've given it a nudge.
Yeah.
And now I want my power back. I want what was taken from me. You've taken everything from me, and I want it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and that was my goal. And so I just started off just selling drugs again. And then very quickly, I think through determination and probably just the lack of I didn't really care about any consequences, so I said yes to everything.
Right.
That really quickly developed into a life that I never thought that I would be into so fast.
So you got into debt collecting?
Yeah.
Yep. And so, when we say debt collecting, there's a lot of different perceptions of what debt collecting is, but you're a virtual standover man, and if the money's not forthcoming, there's usually consequences, and there might be a bit of a flogging. Yeah,
pretty much. It's a lot different the way Combank operates, but so and like I got into that at almost at a personal vendetta because I'd lost everything.
Yeah, you said that, and I really appreciate your openness when we were chatting the other day that, you wanted to, I'm going to prove I'm a tough guy. I'm going to prove this world, and but I just had to clarify with you, I didn't want to have a psychopath on here, but how it wasn't you. You knew it wasn't you. It was just this false bravado that you thought, I can do this. If I've got to belt someone to collect money, I'll do that. Yeah.
And look, I don't think I've ever had I've never been in a dust up, or I've never been in done anything violent where I haven't left that situation feeling worse.
Yeah.
And gone like, fuck that. What did I do that for? That person's gonna go home. They're gonna feel like shit. I always felt bad about it. Doing the debt collecting thing was. For me, it was I managed to convince myself, like I was almost on a crusade. You know what I mean? I was almost felt like I tried to convince myself I was some sort of vigilante, in this sense. And at first it was about money, but then it became, in the end, I started doing jobs that had nothing to do with money, and people were just paying me to enforce.
Yeah.
People just, some guy would just give me $2,500 and go, "Can you go and flog this cunt for me?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went, yeah, sure, I'd love to.
What was your mindset before you went in and did that? Was it like, it's all right to say when you're doing the deal and, I've got that. But when you pull up and there's a bloke and you're thinking, I'm going to give him a touch-up here because whatever reason. What was going through your mind then?
It's funny you actually say that because there's such a big contrast of sitting down. I would sit down and have the meeting with the client, and I would go like, what's the situation? And then they would tell me, and then I would go, and then I would sort of ask for more information, like where does this person live? Who else lives at the house? What can you tell me about the house? Do I got to go scope it out? Sometimes they'd give you I remember there was one guy who gave me no information whatsoever, just a photograph.
Yeah.
And that was really it. Just a Facebook profile picture.
Right.
I managed to get, and then he goes, this is where he lives, and I was like, who else lives at the house? What's the situation? Who lives on the street? Is it a gang street? Is he in a gang? It gave me fuck all information, and I hated it because I had to sit outside this cunt's house for a week.
Yeah.
To try and scope him out. Yeah, work it out. And when you're in that meeting, it's really easy to be like, yeah, sweet, I'll do that. That's easy. It's so easy to say yes. Yeah. Talk's cheap. And then when you're sitting outside that house, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. And you just go into work mode.
Yeah.
You just go into work mode. I just go into work mode. Don't get me wrong, almost all of it, I think, if not all of it, was drug induced.
Right. Okay. So that's taking a bit of the emotional intelligence out of your thought process.
Yeah. All your empathy and sympathy is gone.
Yeah.
So you don't feel any of that, and then all your inhibitions are gone.
Yeah.
So you don't have any inhibitions. You just go, okay, sweet, I can, you just go into work mode and you just go, okay, I'm going to do it. And that's how you calm yourself down. You make a plan. Like my mum always said, a dream without a goal without a plan is a dream. So you
way of breaking it down.
So you make a plan and you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. The fella's going to come out of the house. He's going to go to his work truck. I'm going to tap him on the shoulder. I'm going to hit him in the leg with this, and then you're going to do this, and this.
Yeah. Okay. And but with the drugs, it helps because I know if you're going to go into a violent situation, you get yourself ready for it, and I think, okay, well, I'm up for this. I'm about to do this. I know what I'm going to do, but you got to get yourself into that mindset.
You got to get yourself, yeah. So I think I sat outside this guy's house for 3 or 4 nights, scoping it out and getting his routine and stuff like that. And then the day of, the morning of, I would have sat outside his house from about 2 in the morning onwards, just smoking bowls. Just smoking bowls and bowls of shard.
Because I'm sensing you're not the type of bloke here who would take the drugs aside that you'd be going, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to go give this bloke a flogging. I in the times that we've spent together and talking to you, I get the sense that's not you. So is drugs here again masking, the pain of what you're going to do? Like,
yeah.
Like I'm going to go in and belt this bloke. I'm going to feel like a real shithead. But I'll take drugs and that'll mask it.
Yeah, I think what drugs did more than anything is they encouraged my. I didn't realize until years later after I did trauma counselling and stuff like that. I remember I did this. I had to do these bunch of tests. Tests if you're a psychopath, tests if you're this and that. And I did these bunch of tests, and I came back and I think I'd scored. This woman she'd worked in criminal psychology for her whole life, 30 years or something like that. She'd never seen anything like it, but I think I scored one of the highest. Well, if not, it was scored one of the highest in New Zealand for dissociation disorder.
Mm.
So what I didn't know until then was it wasn't necessarily just the drugs that were like numbing me, but what they were doing is they were helping encourage my dissociation disorder, so I could disassociate in the time
with what you were doing.
What I was doing, so you don't feel anything. It's like you're in a movie.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all make believe. The whole world just goes make believe, and you just sort of just go numb to the world. You completely detach from reality, and you just go, yeah.
Is that something that flowed on from what happened to you when you were a child? Did you break that down? And because I can imagine what you're describing there is a way that you can cope with things as a child, and then even when you're suppressing your sexuality.
Yeah, absolutely, and it worked in every element of that. Where like when I first started getting molested, that's what I would do. I would disassociate, so I wasn't happening. I wasn't, even if I was in the room, it wasn't real. I could just sort of switch off the contact with reality, and I just didn't feel like any of it was real, and that's how I suppressed it. And when you're 5 years old and you got a guy forcing you to drink his piss, it's pretty easy to do that sort of stuff, and that's really what sends you into that zone where you just disassociate and you just go, I'm not in the room.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, and then coming out, being gay. I remember when I first started sleeping with guys, it used to make me sick to my stomach. What am I doing? You
used to have your interaction with your mate or your partner, and then hate yourself.
I hated myself when I first started. I remember it used to make me physically ill. And I'd be like, what have I done? I was so ashamed of myself. Yeah. But then again, that disassociation could make me like snap out of it. I hadn't done that. I'm not gay. And if somebody would say I was gay, I'd fucking club you in the head.
Okay, you even lie to yourself.
Yeah. My whole life was lying to me first, I think, and then lying to everybody else afterwards.
How did it go when you became your second career path in the world of criminals, where bigger, braver, stronger? Your second lot. How did that go, being the gay tough guy? In that environment,
I think there was an element
in the gangs.
I think there was a combination of people respected it. I was pretty reckless and I was pretty hard cunt, and I would go into situations. Later on in my life, when I was, that second time I went down that criminal path, I was a very different person.
Okay.
I was very sure of myself. I'd come out. I'd overcome that battle. I didn't have that insecurity anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't give a fuck what people thought. And I was in it to win it. I was like, you know what, I'm angry and I'm here to do a job.
Okay, so that might have given a bit of respect, and don't fuck with me.
Don't fuck with me, like, yeah, absolutely. Because it was pretty brazen, some of the stuff I do. I'd do fucking drug deals, and there might be a fucking rebel in the car.
Yeah.
And I'd do a drug deal, and I'd be like, that guy was kind of cute, eh? He was pretty good looking. You reckon he was gay? And the fella would look at me and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they'd always say the same thing. They'd be always like, fuck, I forget that you're gay.
Yeah.
I was pretty brazen. I didn't really care about it. I used to joke about it. Fuck, I'd met up with a fella to do an enforcing job. It wasn't even debt collection, I don't think. It was just an enforcing job. I had to move this guy out of this house. And sitting down, and he's just like, you asked me, you got a missus and stuff like that, which is firstly, he's like, I don't know why you'd ask your debt collector if he's got a wife and kids, you know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to build a relationship with me for? But I was like, no, I'm gay. And he just looked at me and he was just like, I think there was this, you see this look in his eyes of kind of like confusion and then terror.
Yeah.
You see a lot of terror in people's eyes when you're like the hardest guy in the room or one of the most reckless guys in the room, and you're sitting there and you're being a hard cunt, and then you also say I'm gay.
You drop that. Yeah, I can see where
people
that
would terrified. this guy's fucking different. You know, like this guy's either gone through hell and back, and that's why he's so staunch about it, which is normally the case. But I think there was this element too. I don't know if this is true, but I think there's this element of this guy's like, damn, this guy might not just flog me.
Well, it's
It could be worse.
Well, I think that would have crossed his mind too.
Yeah, a couple of people. Yeah, but I took a lot of pride in being openly gay sort of gangster, but I wasn't really brazen about it, but I never hid it from people.
You didn't hide it.
I didn't hide it from people, and I think it was, part of that was because at that time I never planned to join a gang.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I wanted to join a gang,
so
and
you wanted to be accepted in what? Yeah.
And I wanted to join a gang, and I wanted to have that inclusion, and I knew that lifestyle was that. Gangs would never, even if I was a real hard gun, I don't think a gang would give me that. I could do 100 earns, I could do 100 jobs for somebody, and they wouldn't patch me. I get that. I'm more than happy, and everybody's got different. There's different organisations all around the world that are like that. I wouldn't expect to see the Pope with a rainbow hat on. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't. It's just not their organisation, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
So your career as the gay gangster. When did you decide to change that?
Well, some of the stuff I was doing, I was working in. It was a combination of things where I was already really unhappy because of the whole relationship breakup and everything like that. I didn't really have any stable place to live. It was about a year later. I was just sort of still living out of my car. I would couch surf. I'd drive around. I was just doing drug runs. So, I would do a few odd jobs on the side. It was. A laboratory I would stop in and say hello to and stuff like that, and a few other things. So I was doing a lot of dumb shit.
Yeah,
and my life was going nowhere. And I think the whole aura of being this big bad guy was starting to get over it. It gets boring after a while. Like, it gets boring. People don't talk about how boring it is being a criminal. It's the same rhetoric over and over again. There's no growth.
Yeah, I'm a tough guy.
I'm a tough guy. It's like, you wouldn't even say that for 40 years. You want to keep doing the same shit for 40 years. There's no growth. There's no development.
You don't get a lot of intellectual discussions.
You don't. And that used to shit me. And then I was getting really heavy back into using drug use. So I was starting to intravenous drugs. So I was injecting MDMA and crystal meth and all the rest of it, and my addiction was getting pretty bad, and that became pretty bad. It was intravenous drug addiction became really, really bad. And I remember I was working in this, and I was in this gang pad, and every night there's fucking police drones were flying around the perimeter of the pad, filming everything, and we're fucking having to talk on whiteboards. You got to write everything on a whiteboard, show it to your mate, scribble it out, and then rub it out, and then we'd have conversations like that. And it was all just getting a bit crazy. I was like, what am I doing in my life? I always wanted to be an actor or something along those lines. I always thought I wanted to be something like that in the arts. Never had an outlet for it. But now I had no reason not to pursue it. Yep. I had nothing to lose, really. I'd lost everything already.
You're not leaving the perfect life.
No, exactly. Yeah. I had nothing to lose, and I just thought, you know what, I want to give this a crack before everything sort of turns to custard.
Yeah.
And I watched a comedy special on Netflix at my cousin's house, sleeping on the couch, and then I thought, this is great. I'm going to give this a try, and then I ended up signing up for this open mic in Auckland City. I remember it was probably about a year after I watched that special. It was 2020. We clicked into 2020. We went into lockdowns and stuff like that. And then it was almost a year later, I had this opportunity to do this open mic in Auckland. And I just thought it was a shitty dive bar.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'll go and give this a nudge. I thought there's going to be maybe all 7 people, and no one's going to laugh. And I'm probably never going to do it again. But I want to give it a nudge. And I fucking signed up for this open mic. And it's the biggest comedy club in New Zealand. It was a 200-seat theatre. And I had no idea. I had no idea about that world. I knew nothing about it. So when they said the classic, I was like, oh, yeah, cool, whatever. Get there, and it's a 200-seat theatre. I'm wearing gang colours. I think I just smoked a massive joint. And I walked out. And I walked. I remember I smoked a massive joint, and I walked into the room. And then I realised how big it was. And I just went fucking wide. I was like, oh.
What am I doing?
What am I doing? Yeah. Get on stage. The first act was really bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay,
that helps.
Yeah, I can't be any worse than this, surely. It wasn't just bad, it was really weird, and it was just weird.
Missed the point.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. Thank God. I'm not that guy. And I got on stage and I did pretty well. And they go, mate, that was pretty good. Do you want to come back at the end of the month? And I always said that before I went into it. I said, if they ask me back, then I'll come back. Then it's meant to be.
Yeah.
If they ask me back, it's meant to be. I said, come back at the end of the month. So I go back at the end of the month. Did another 5 minutes, whole new 5 minutes. And they're like, yeah, that was really good again. And there's a really big comedian in the room. He's my best male comedian in New Zealand, maybe 10 times. I'd seen him on TV when I was a kid. I really loved his work. And he goes, boy, come over here. And I was like, yeah. He's like, how many times have you been on stage? I said, that was my second time. He goes, fuck, that was great. And the crew at the comedy club said to me, they go, do you know there's a competition actually you can sign up for the best new comedian. It's called Raw. It's the best new comedian in the country. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm all good, thanks. I'm fine. You know, like, I'm fine. I'm still a criminal. You know, I don't really want to know if I want to be doing. I'm just dipping my toes in. And they're like, no, you signed up for it when you signed up from the first open mic a month ago. That's when you already signed up for it. Like, it's just your name's in the hat. And I said, oh yeah, cool. Whatever happens. And they're like, no, we're telling you because you're in the semi-final. You're in the top 24 in the country. Yeah. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, you come back at the end of the month. I did the semis. I got into top 10 in the country, and then like 8 months later, I remember I was doing the grand finals, and I was getting nominated for the best new comedian in New Zealand. I got nominated. I was out of 4 people in the country, got nominated for this award. Wow! And this guy, he got raided, and they called him, you know, sperm suit and everything. Yeah. And
white overalls.
Yeah. The sperm suit on everything.
Is that what you blokes call it?
Yeah, sperm suit. Well, that's what I call them anyway. Maybe it was wishful thinking. I saw all those guys standing around. And so, yeah, he got caught, and he ended up getting sentenced for 15 years non-parole for manufacturing. Yeah,
that's the reality.
Yeah, that's it. And then I was getting nominated for Best New Comedian in New Zealand. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And I was like, wow. And when I started doing comedy, I fucking loved it. Yeah. I loved it, man. I loved it so much. And
did you know you had a talent for it? Did you, like you said, you wanted to do something creative, something in the arts? Did you know you had a talent for stand-up comedy?
Never thought about stand-up, never once. Never thought that it could ever tickle like what I was, you know, scratch the itch. I never thought comedy would be... I thought I'd do acting or maybe music. I thought something like I'd never considered comedy. I don't know why. It never crossed my mind. I'd never been to comedy clubs before that. I'd never watched live stand-up.
Because I reckon it would have to be one of the hardest gigs because it can either be really good or it can be really bad. It can be complete silence or it can be people keeling over and dying with laughter.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's so hard. It's not like a song. Like, if you can play the guitar and I give you a list of notes...
you know you've got something to present.
Yeah, you can play those notes and it's going to make that noise and it's a song. Yeah. But with stand-up, it's not like that at all. It's so difficult and it's such a ceilingless sort of venture, if you know what I mean. So, like, for me, I love that. I don't ever want to reach the top, or otherwise I'm going to get bored.
Do you think the risk associated with it too, rocks your boat in a way, with all the lifestyle that you've had? The fact that getting up on stage, you're really putting yourself out there each time?
I don't know. I love it. And like, I find it so exciting. I think looking back, you know, when I talk to classmates too that I've got people who were in high school with me, I was the class clown.
Okay, so you had it. It was just natural.
Natural, yeah. So when I got up there, it was really natural. And I remember there was this. I got on stage and then I just come alive from day dot. I just come alive, and there was a person in there that was the real me. Yeah. And I didn't realise until getting on stage that's what I had to do to have the real Elliot to come out. I had to get on stage and talk into a microphone and entertain a bunch of people. And then all of a sudden he comes out and I was like, oh my God, wow, that's me. That's the real me. He lives on that stage.
Okay, it's interesting because I see you come alive when you're talking about it. Clearly, you enjoy what you're doing there. And I wonder if that's just the culmination of all that suppressed shit that you've packed away all your whole life, and now on stage, I can be me. I'm not hiding from anyone.
Yeah, I'm not hiding. I can be exactly who I am. And I think it was the surprise of that person coming out. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't plan for any of that. I just got up there and I just started going. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, that's me. That's who I am right there. He just came out and it surprised me. And I was like, it was such a beautiful gift.
You discover yourself.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first went on stage?
26, I must have been.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 26 it must have been, yeah.
And did that, getting the high that you got from that, did that push aside your need for drugs, your need for being the gay gangster? And
yeah, all of that went. All of that actually just became funny jokes. Because I started looking at everything differently, and I was like, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, what are you doing walking around, what are you up to? And so I just started making jokes about it, and I started making jokes about how I went from OG to LGBT and just shit like that, and people loved it. They thought it was funny. They thought it was so funny. And then I just started finding the beauty in everything after doing comedy. I started finding the beauty in everything and the funny in everything. There's funny in everything, and I think because I'd had so much suffering and so much loss and so many bad hands dealt to me, I just went, you ever gonna laugh or cry about it?
Yeah.
I remember saying, like, this is a joke. This is a joke after everything I've been through. This is a joke. And then I started saying it so many times, I changed the tone of my voice, and instead of going, this is a joke, I was like, this is a joke. This is actually a funny, this is funny.
It's interesting how you look at setbacks in life, isn't it? It's the way you can deal with it. You can hang on to that anger and just have the shits about it and hate the world.
Yeah.
Or just laugh at yourself and go, oh, who would have thought?
Yeah, and then that's it, laughing at yourself. And so that was another thing. That's how I started learning how to take accountability for my behaviour.
Yeah.
Was going like, you're a dick, mate. Like, everything you're doing is bad. You're creating your own shitty environment in your life because you're bitter and you're twisted and you didn't like what happened to you. Fucking tough titties.
So you had to own that.
Oh, yeah. That's the only way to get out of that.
Yeah.
That's the only way to get out of that. It's the only way to get out of addiction. It's the only way to get out of, not the only way to get out of addiction, but it's one of the key elements to get out of any of that lifestyle, whether you're being a criminal or a drug addict or whatever it is that you're doing. If you're being a bad person, it's you.
Stop blaming the world.
Stop blaming the world. It's all you, mate. Yeah. That's what you're doing,
Yeah.
You're doing that. You're in so much, you've got so many things that you can control in your life. Focus on them and control them. Control what you can control and stop trying to say that, oh, it's out of my hands. Yeah, just because somebody did something bad to you, now that it gives you the opportunity to do something bad to someone else. That's just stupid. And it's easy for people to think, to get into this mindset of like being a victim and going, I'm a victim here and I'm a victim and that's why I'm doing this. And it's just like, no, have a little bit of money, have a little bit of self-control and have a little bit of accountability, because now you're a dick.
Yeah.
Like, you're a dick, mate. Like, there's nothing else to say about it.
I think, the life lesson that you're giving to people there is just so important, because time and time again, even things where people are victims of situations that it wasn't their recklessness or anything that caused it, but do you hate? Do you just keep why me, oh my, destroying your life, or you turn it into something positive. And I think, and that's what fascinated me about you when I was doing the prep for it, and the people that recommended you, that you've turned, as I said at the start, most people we have here have turned their life around because they've been caught and they think, hey, this is not cool. I'm locked in a cell 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
But you're just decided through life's choices to turn your life around.
And that was a combination of always being, not a really combination of anything, but it was, a combination of always being miserable. I was always miserable.
Yeah.
Always. I was always unhappy. I was always miserable. And it turns out I was the one making all of those choices. No one was forcing me to do any of that. And all of the stuff that happened anyway. Yeah. Like, they called me a faggot anyway. Regardless of what I've done, regardless of how tough I was, regardless of all the bad things I've done, all the people that I hurt and all the people that I disappointed in my life, I'm still going to get called a faggot. So it didn't change anything. I still got the same result.
It didn't work anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, and just always being miserable. Like, I was always unhappy. I was always broke. I was always struggling. I remember every fucking Christmas I'd never have money to give presents to anybody. Yeah. I felt horrible about it, but I always had drugs. Yeah. And I remember going, next year's going to be different. Fuck, you do that 10 times and a decade slipped through your fingers. Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm looking in the mirror and I'm 27 and I'm going, fuck, I've been using drugs and alcohol for the last 15 years and I'm 27.
It can slip by, can't it?
Slips by, mate. Like, that's the thing. I had a 15-year addiction at 27.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
those are not good statistics.
No, definitely not. What's like working now that you're working with creative types, and you're still working in your trade, but you're doing your stand-up comedy. Oh, we haven't got you to Australia. Why you come to Australia? Why?
Why did I?
Why?
To take back the Pavlova.
That's bullshit.
To take back all our sports players. No, I came to Australia for an opportunity. I got to the point in my life. Look, even when I first started comedy, I'd love to tell you it was open and shut case where I started in comedy and my whole life changed and But we all know that's just not how reality is. That's just not how life works. It takes years. So when I first started in comedy, I also started going through trauma counselling and stuff like that, and I started to develop myself as a person because I was still a very angry person.
Yeah. When
I first started doing stand-up, I was still dealing... there was still a lot of bad things going on in my life, and I was still just slowly fixing things bit by bit. And I was in a relationship at the time, a different person. I love this person to death. He's my best mate. I absolutely love him to bits, but I ruined that relationship because I wasn't ready for it. Yeah. I was still a very hurt person, and I still had a lot of stuff to work through. And I stopped doing ice, but I was still a heavy drinker. I'm talking 15 beers on a Monday, heavy drinker.
Okay, yeah.
And it was really that exploded because of comedy. My head exploded, my ego exploded because I was immediate success.
That's interesting too.
That's something that I talk to a lot of people about it, where I like see comics getting good gigs early on, and I go, just don't let it get to your head because it's a long road. It's a long road to the top.
Good advice.
Long road to the top. I started drinking really heavily at the start to replace the ice. Smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot, and I just became a massive alcoholic. And through that alcoholism, I ruined my relationship. I lost my fucking job again. I lost everything again. I ended up living in a car again.
You love these cars.
I love these cars. Yeah, I know. I love these cars. I couldn't believe I was back to this situation. I was fucking spewing on myself, and like I'd fully relapsed after I lost my relationship, and I just remember thinking in my head, like, you just got to do what you love. You know what I mean? Stop trying to pander around the situation. And it was funny with comedies. The only thing in my life really, and I hate to say this because I fucking let some people down who really didn't deserve it. Like my last partner and stuff like that, and my mum and my dad. I've disappointed a lot of people because of my behaviour. And I would love to sit here and tell you that those people was the main driving force for me to sort my shit out. And they were in a big part, but it was also comedy in a big part. It was never just one of those things. Yeah. And when comedy got introduced into my life and my behaviour started to affect my stand-up, fucking straight away I cut it out of my life.
Okay.
Straight away. Nothing in my mind could ever jeopardise stand-up comedy for me. There was not a single high worth it. This is, I remember I started doing comedy, I was like, this is better than meth.
Yeah.
This is great, and I didn't want anything to jeopardise it. Yeah, natural high. It was amazing, and just the amount of release and fulfillment that I got from doing stand up was so huge. It was so fulfilling. It was everything I ever wanted out of life. I was like, I found it. I found my thing.
Yeah.
And so anything that jeopardised it, I instantly cut it out of my life. And so my alcohol was terrible and stuff like that. And I just go, and I remember it started to affect my comedy. I just quit. I haven't had a drink in nearly 2 years.
Yeah. And you feel good for it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, love it. But see, I was living in a car, had fuck all going on again. I was back
They got these things called camper vans.
I know, I need to invest in one, yeah.
Yeah, you should.
It's just, it's so funny. I remember getting more involved into mainstream media and what people get up to on Instagram and stuff like that. I haven't known the TV in years, and I open up Instagram, I make an Instagram and stuff like that, and check it out, and I see all these all these white girls in Byron Bay driving around going, van life. And I was like, fuck you, lady. That was my reality. Like, talking about van life to me. Like, I used to live in a car. I've been homeless 3 times in my life. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
This is not a gimmick. You've just cultural appropriation of my existence.
So when you came to Australia, did you have a plan?
Nothing. Nah, no plan.
So that's gutsy in itself. You just had to walk away from the life over in New Zealand and come over here and see what you could make of it.
Yeah, essentially just I quit drinking on the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Just a coincidence. That's just what happened. And I wasn't doing dry July or anything like that. It just happened to be the 1st.
Yep.
And then 16 days later, I was on a plane to Sydney. I had a sister, my big sister, older sister, she lived here. And I slept in her spare room for a month or so. She lived about 4 doors down from a butcher shop. I walked in and I said to that fella, I said, I'm going to try some of your sausages. I'm a butcher. And he goes, fuck that. You just want a job. I was like, yeah, sweet. So I got a job in about 2 days. And then found my own apartment, and then just started doing it, and it was nearly 2 years ago now, but I really started doing stand-up a lot in Sydney probably about a year and a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's been such a whirlwind.
Where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram.
Here you go.
You can follow me on Instagram, Elliott McLaren on Instagram. Look, I suck at social media.
Oh, tell
I
me.
know.
I share it with you, brother.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel bad saying it to anybody who's slightly older than me.
Yeah.
Because you're only slightly older than me, Gary.
Yeah, just a week, I think.
So I struggle with it a lot, but you can follow me on Elliott McLaren. I'm trying to figure it out, man. You know, I was a fucking strung out drug addict for years, so trying to figure out all this social media stuff. And I hate that because I'm 29.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm the only guy I know.
You should be. You should be going blah blah. I thought you'd go blah 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 blah, and I go, oh right.
Nah, no idea. I've got all of 700 followers. I got no idea how to do social media, but follow me on there because I'm learning how to do it, and I'm going to be putting up a lot more content.
And that's clearly working very hard on it, and it's something that you continually refine. Like I'm just trying to get a sense of it. You've got your act. Okay, you've gone from a stand-up mic 5 minutes to now doing shows.
Yeah, it's a funny thing when you first start. You do a tight 5. If you can get 5 minutes of material, you're stoked. I was thinking about this last night.
Yeah,
on stage, I was thinking about it where I remember having to do 5 minutes at the start and being terrified of not having enough content for 5 minutes. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, within a couple of years, all of a sudden I'm going, when people say 10 minutes, I never thought I'd get to 10. Yeah. And then people say 10 minutes, and I'm like, fuck, that's not enough time.
So that's when you got your life on track, and then you've contracted HIV, which is, there's a lot of ignorance about HIV and how you live with it. What's your experience?
Look, it's... At the start, I was really quite solemn about the whole situation.
No, I would imagine. Of course you would be.
It was really quite sad. And like you said, Gary, it was funny. I've come over to Australia. I'm doing really well. Everything's going really well over here, and everything is. I fucking love my life over here. It's amazing. Very grateful for everything. And then all of a sudden last year, towards the end of the year, I remember I got really sick.
Yep.
First my jaw ballooned up. I had this abscess in my tooth, and I ballooned right up. I got some antibiotics, and I fixed it. And then after that, I had this cough for months. And then towards the end of the year, October last year, I had so much going on. I had to, it was a Thursday morning, and I had this infection on my arse cheek, actually. It just started growing over the period of about 2 weeks. It hurt. I just kept carrying on with it. And I thought, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's a spider bite originally.
Right.
A spider bit me in bed.
Yeah.
And I didn't think too much of it. And I just, because it wasn't a deadly spider, it wasn't a white or anything like that.
Yep.
I'm talking shit. I don't know nothing about spiders.
I didn't realise you were whatever that word is for the people that study spiders.
Arachna, whatever. So I've got no idea, but I'm pretty arrogant and pretty reckless, and I just go, it's probably nothing. It'll be all good. Didn't even look at it, and then about 2 weeks later, this thing just kept growing, and I had to go and vote. Had the New Zealand election, and then moved house at lunchtime that day, and then went and did a solo show, and then I had back-to-back shows Friday and Saturday night. In Newtown and Campbelltown and stuff like that. So I was all over the shop. And I woke up on Sunday morning, and this infection, it was like the size of a fucking grapefruit now. It was massive.
Yeah.
And my fever, I had a really high fever from the infection. I had a sore throat. I was getting sick from all the bacteria in my body. And I remember I fainted, got up in the morning and went to go to the toilet, and I fucking just dropped.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not good. I don't feel good. I'm a little bit concerned. So I booked an Uber and got it, because the fucking bus on Sunday morning doesn't run till late from Tempe, so they need to fix that bus system. People are going to die. And so I booked an Uber, and I got an Uber to St. George Hospital, and I remember I walked in there, and the lady's like, take your trousers off. And I was like, I'm not used to doing this with a lady. And and she looked at the infection, and she goes, holy fuck, she dropped her clipboard. She didn't swear, I don't think she saw it. She dropped her clipboard, and then she picked her clipboard up and fucking hit me on the shoulder with it. And she's like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Like, what's wrong with you? And I said, why? How bad is it? She's like, you're going to die.
Yeah.
She said, you're going to die. Pretty bad. You're going to die, mate. Like, you're going to die. You're so lucky you're here right now. Like, I can't believe you're still standing.
Yeah.
They put an IV into me straight away. I had about 4 bags of antibiotics in an IV.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. I will say, even now with all my, because I get a lot of blood tests and stuff for having HIV, and I still get flashbacks from shooting up.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I still get flashbacks when they put that needle in my arm. I'm like, I got to
here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. I got to go to a different place because it just brings back too many memories. And so they put that in my arm, and then they just did an emergency surgery, and they put me to sleep straight away. They gave me general anesthetic, put me to sleep, and then cut this infection out of my butt cheek. And I woke up the next morning. I got a phone call, and they're like, "Oh, this is the bloods department." And I said, "Oh yeah, sweet." They're like, "How was everything?" You know, because they're like, "We got your blood test back." And I said, "How was everything? Is everything all good? Is the infection gone? Is my white blood cell count all good? Is everything okay?" And they're like, "Oh, Mr. McLaren, we're very sorry, but you've come back reactive with HIV."
Right.
And I was like, "What does that mean?" They said, "It doesn't mean you've definitely got it, but we need you to come to Sydney Sexual Health and Sydney Hospital for retesting." And so I got on the train. I limped into the thing, and by the time I got there, they'd retested all my bloods, and they go, "Look, we're really sorry, Mr. McLaren, but you've got HIV."
Yeah.
And I just broke into tears. I just started crying. I was so sad. Yeah, I was so sad, and again, a lot of shame.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of shame. I felt really embarrassed. Felt quite dirty.
Yeah.
Felt quite dirty. There was still, there's still a lot of stigma about HIV, and especially contracting it as a gay man, you do feel quite ashamed and quite dirty. And, I think a lot of those comments as a young fella, they came back up when I used to hear people.
Well, that's when, they were talking about AIDS and the Grim Reaper and all that stuff.
And I used to hear people say, "Fuck them. Faggots, they deserve to get AIDS and die. What are they doing with their lives? Fucking sick cunts." So, when I got HIV, that really rattled me, and those sort of thoughts are resonating in my head. And I was just really sad, and I'm very grateful. Sydney, I think, it really needs to take its hat off to itself and really pat itself on the back, in Australia in general. But because I know it's not like this in New Zealand, but Australia in general, but really Sydney, I'm so grateful. I think it's such an amazing thing what you guys have done here with the level of care, for people with HIV.
Okay,
It's incredible. Like, they sit you down, the doctor talks to you. I mean, I sort of cried my eyes out for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then pulled myself together. And then they offer you free counselling every week. You can go to a counsellor every week for as long as you want to sort of just comprehend it. They've got all these great groups you can go to, like Acorn and stuff like that, which are little like groups people can sit in. Acorn's really good too, because it's for recovering drug addicts as well. So it's because a lot of those things come hand in hand, the intravenous needle use and the HIV. So really good things, and they put me on medication. And I think the first week I listened to Streets of Philadelphia. First day I got home and I listened to Streets of Philadelphia. If you're not familiar, it's the theme song for Philadelphia. Fucking cried my eyes out. And then about the next day, felt a bit sorry for myself again. I went to the library and wrote some jokes.
Yeah.
And then the next night I went to a comedy show, and I tried to do some jokes about having it, and that was it. And I got over it really fast.
Yeah, because I know when we talked the other day, and I said, "Can we talk about it?" And you said you're happy to talk about it, and you said, "Look, I'm living my life. I've come to terms with it." Because I understand you're saying you're crying first up when you've the diagnosis or the tests come back, and you're thinking, "Okay, does this destroy my life?" But you can still live a life now, can't you? Because that's what I'm sure the listeners are going. Go on, Gary, ask the question. You can still live a life and have a partner and everything else.
Yeah, you can. Like, you can live it. I almost felt embarrassed after everything.
Yeah.
I mean, of course you're going to cry, and that's only natural, and that's a normal thing to do. But you almost feel embarrassed after I had a big cry about it. And I was like, what the fuck am I crying about?
Yeah.
Like, it's totally manageable. I take 1 pill a day that I don't pay any money for.
Yeah.
It's totally free. Like, if I didn't get those pills for free, they're $1,000 for a month's prescription.
Yeah.
So they're not cheap. I get given them for free from Sydney Hospital. They give me free meds. They check my bloods all the time. I've got a normal life expectancy. The medication itself is so remarkable. It drops the viral load down. I don't know who fucking named a gay disease viral load, but what they were thinking was
I'm not even going to go there.
What 14-year-old named that? Yeah. But as I bring your kid to work day, and he's like, "Dad, call it a viral load." But they drops it down to under 200.
Yeah.
So if it's under 200, then they got this thing in HIV communities called U, like the letter U equals U. Yeah, so that's undetectable equals untransmissible.
Okay.
So if, you can't even see it in a blood test.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can't see it in any of my bloods. I can't give it to anybody, which is,
Right.
you know.
Okay, and that's the question, like everyone, what we were schooled up with when it came out. It was just, be so careful, you can catch it anywhere, drink out of the same glass, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, remember when Princess Di kissed that AIDS guy, and everyone was like, whoa, that was...
Yeah, that was radical.
Radical,
for
yeah.
the time. But, it's come so far.
Yeah, it's come so far. So, like, you know, I live such a normal life, and I've only had one bad thing happen, and that was I ran out of medication once.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. I was in Melbourne. This is actually when I was in the Comedy Fest, and I got really sick.
Right, okay.
Really sick,
So
you
got to stay on top of it.
You got to stay on top of it, and if you don't take your medication and you lapse on it and you haven't taken it, what can happen then is the virus can then develop
full blown.
Yeah, well, it can develop full blown, but it can develop resistance to the antiviral medication.
Yeah, so you're going to do yourself a disservice.
Yeah, because now the medication I've got's 1 pill a day. It's really good.
Yeah.
And you want to stay on that for as long as you can, or forever if you can. But if you stuff it up, then the virus can become stronger than that, and resist
don't decide to become a tough guy again, the gangster again. Just on comedy. Like, we talk about stuff here, and we have some horrendous things that are discussed on here, and people don't understand it. They call it the black humour of police, or people in first responders and all that.
Yeah.
I want people to understand you've got to be able to have a laugh at things. Like, I can't talk about all the heavy shit we talk about without having a laugh. That's the way I got through the cops for so long.
Yeah.
In that, and never disrespectful to the what has happened, but that's the way you deal with it. You've got to be able to laugh. And you talked about your recovery or steering your life in the, not just with the HIV, but your life in general. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
And how much does that help in life, going through all the battles that you can go through life, that you can have a laugh at yourself?
Yeah, not only does it help you in your mental health.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you can have a laugh about it, and it sort of just doesn't make it feel so heavy.
Yeah.
But also it helps you learn a lot more.
Yeah.
Because then you're being a little bit more vulnerable. You're being a little bit more like clear-headed about everything, and you're not so like, I learned a lot of lessons by being able to laugh at myself.
Yeah.
And being able to see the silly side, like I was saying before, and I could look at myself and be like, what a fucking joke. Like, what was I doing? Like, who did I think I was? So who did I think I was? You know, doing dumb shit and being in like, you know, especially like when you're a teenager and you're wearing all these gang colours and you're graffitiing and stuff like that, and you think you're the man and stuff like that. And like, when I look at kids like that now, especially you fellas have got those essays and oh my God, like, just how embarrassing, you know, when those kids are 30, fuck, I hope that they've, because you never know, some people never grow up.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, when they get to like 30, they're going to be like, what a dick.
They'll look back. Well, yeah, as you grow too, you look at life and you learn so much. What you thought you knew in 20 is fuck all compared to what you know at 30, and it just keeps going.
I did that at 20, 24, 27, and now I'm 29, and I'm still like, oh man, I didn't know shit.
Are you? We'll wrap it up. But are you happy with the what's happened in your life?
Fuck, interesting question. And you know what, I think about this a lot. It's a really tough question, because to say anything other than I am what I am, would be ungrateful.
Yeah.
In reality, you know what I mean? Yeah. If you look at it, you know, good, bad, and ugly, it doesn't really matter. But to say that I wanted anything else than what I already am now, that'd be incredibly ungrateful. You know, I've had a lot of bad, but I've had a lot of good parts in my life. I've been shown a lot of love. Yeah. I had a really loving mother, you know, and I've got great siblings and all the rest of it. So like, yeah, it sucked. Yeah, I would have rather probably not gotten molested. Yeah. That probably would have helped a lot in life.
Yeah.
I would have loved to grow up in a accepting, inclusive environment, and I would have loved to be able to come out of the closet at an appropriate age, and also at any age I've felt I could have, but just in a safe space.
Yeah.
And not have to hide myself or do anything differently. Yeah, and it would have been great. I think it would have been too easy. I would have gotten bored. I'm very grateful for the life I've got.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful, and I'm very grateful to have such a good life. So many of us still don't have good lives, and there's so many atrocities going on in the world right now, and it's all part of the beautiful adventure. You know, I really changed the way I had a really bad overdose at one time. I took about 7 mils of GHB in a shot glass with it. And I was fucking, I had a bad day. And
that'll help.
And my heart stopped. I was alone in my house, and my heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. I remember I was slipping into the ether. And I remember thinking in my head at the time, I was like, if I don't start breathing now, I'm gonna die, and I'm never gonna come back.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. And I started breathing. I got my lungs working. I pretty much had to manually breathe for about 4 hours. Just had to just remember to breathe, because you're not breathing. You have to remember to breathe. It's not on autopilot anymore. So I had to manually breathe for about 4 hours to keep myself alive. And I remember after that whole ordeal, I looked back and I was like, wow, life's actually just a beautiful, crazy, fun adventure.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. Like, it's so limited. We've got hardly any time on this earth. We get fuck all goes so fast, It goes so fast, just like that, like you can. And I remember that as a criminal. I remember saying to myself that as a criminal, I was like, you can lose everything just as quickly as you can say, I wish I never did that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that same amount of time of me saying, man, I wish I never did that, I could be incarcerated for the rest of my life. I could be dead.
Yeah.
It gets so fast. We've got such a limited amount of time on this earth. And because of that, it's this balance of not taking anything too seriously.
Yep.
Because it is all going to be over one day, and it's all going to be forgotten. It's going to be dust in the wind. But then also not being nihilistic at the same time and going, it still matters. You should still do what you love to do, and you should still, have passions and stuff like that in life. But you shouldn't be so worried about your failures. You should just pick yourself up and carry on, because, it is what it is.
If you go through life without failing at anything, you can't build your character. Failure. I learn more every time I stuff up on something than any success. And if I just got success, then, as you said, when you got it in the stand-up comedy at the start, you just take it for granted.
Yeah.
And then you lose what made you that good to start with.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, exactly. So life is a beautiful adventure. It's all going to be over one day. So you just gotta have fun with it, man. It is what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a nice way for us to wrap up, and I just want to thank you for being so open and honest with discussing your life. And when I'm laughing at certain aspects of your life, I'm laughing with you, not at you.
You can do either. I don't mind.
Look, I think you've given a good insight into how life can go off track, but how you can turn it around, and just being honest with how life can impact on people.
It can, things happen in life, but never give up on yourself and never give up on your dreams. That's the only way you're really a loser in life.
Good advice. Good advice. Thanks, Elliot.
No worries. My pleasure. Cheers.
Elliott McLaren, geez, he's open about his life. What an interesting chat. I still can't believe he turned his life around. He had some highs and lows and very complex life, but so open and honest about his life, and I like that. I think it's I find inspiration for people that can have low points in their life and turn things around. It also makes me reflect on the insidious impact that child sexual abuse has, and the pain that carries people throughout their life and the way that they live their life. But I came away from that with a real positive attitude, and I like to see people turn their life around, and he seems to have done it, and he has found his passion as a stand-up comedian, and I really enjoyed the chat.